winning. And I'll never forget, it was 1970 that I won the British Open. And I walked in the press room, and the press said to me, well, Jack, that's 10. You only got 3 more to Ty Jones. What do you mean? I'd never even thought about it. Never entered my mind. And all of a sudden, from then on, every one I won was a number. And when I passed Jones, I guess in 73, that was the hard one to get by. And once I got by that, then I kept winning, won a few more. And but Jones was the one that was the guiding light for that.
I got a great kick out of Nicklaus. I interviewed him this year at the British Open, and he said something to me that I'll never forget. I wish he would have told me that 20 years ago. He said the easiest tournaments of the year to win are the majors. I always thought, man, and when he said it, I went, whoa, what are you talking about? And he said, because it's the only tournaments that the guys are not comfortable with, and they come back to you. If you just hang in there and post a score, these guys will fold, is what he's saying. So, I mean, it's the easiest tournament to win.
If I had my time to go over again, I would only concentrate on majors. And I think the only guy that was intelligent enough to realise that early enough was Nicklaus. And Jack's whole year was built around the 4 major championships.
I think the common element is a guy that can play under pressure and has got a real good short game and good putting. The bottom line comes down to the short game and the putting, because nobody dominates usually the majors.
Greg Norman had a great chance of dominating the majors when he led all 4 going into the final round in 1986. Yet, he was only able to win one, the Open at Turnberry. We've all enjoyed the greats on their march up the final hole to victory, but the secret is to get there. And for all the tales of glory, there are many more of anguish and of woe. Sure, it's great to win, but what about the ones that got away?
It hurts a lot, no question about it, because, you know, you put 199% of your own energy and effort into trying to win a golf tournament, but you can't control what other people do. You take your wins with your losses, and sometimes your losses are a lot harder to take than winning a golf tournament.
You've got the most intense pressure in the world on you, maybe one of the few times in your life, and you have to deal with that. You have to go about it like it's normal business, but you have to keep what's at hand and utmost in your mind. You have to keep this shot, this next shot, and then the next putt. You can't start wandering, and I've done that before, and it's cost me dearly. Mentally, it was difficult for a while because I lost a tournament normally that I should have won, and it happened to be a major. So it was even the losing part, and the feeling was much more than it normally would be. But I think it was positive that again that I experienced a feeling that I want to experience again. There's not only a lot of physical ability that goes into winning a major championship, there's a lot of mental ability there too. A lot of strength, a lot of inner strength, and a lot of guts. And those are some things that you're born with.
Tony Jacklin had his share of both, but they had nothing to do with the way he lost the 1972 Open Championship, and with it possibly the belief that he could ever win a major again.
I was motivated tremendously. I was self-motivated. My greatest attribute was my self-confidence, and that was pretty much dented in 72 when Lee did what he did.
It actually started towards the end of the 3rd round. Paired with Jacklin, Trevino was a couple of shots adrift when lightning struck. And if that wasn't enough, another bolt at 18. And still Trevino wasn't finished. Level with 2 to play in the final round, it looked all over at the 71st hole.
I thought Jacklin was going to win the golf tournament. I had given up on 17 on the last day. Drove it in the bunker. I had to go sideways. Hit a 2-wood in front of the green. I wasn't on the green in 3. Jacklin had a 20-footer for birdie. I chipped my ball up so I could try to make par, and I chipped it over the green. All I did was I took a 9-iron out, didn't even get a good grip, didn't even hardly seat my feet. Chipped it back onto the green, the ball goes into the hole.
I think I was capable, tee to green, but I suffered a little bit, I think, in '72 at the British Open when Lee chipped in.
And he three-putted. I was so nervous. By chipping it in, he three-putts.
And I never really, it knocked the wind out of my sails to a degree. And I was never really the same after that.
Yeah, he quit after that. I mean, I thought Tony Jacklin was one of the best players I had ever seen on either side of the ocean. I mean, when he won at Hazeltine in 1970 and he won by 7 or 8 shots, I mean, that was unbelievable how he took that golf course apart.
I'm not blaming Lee for that. It was just a circumstance that happened.
Something clicked. When I chipped in all those times to beat him out of that British Open, he couldn't stand it. And he didn't, and he wouldn't take it anymore, and he just absolutely quit. It's too bad. Golf lost a great competitor, I thought, a great golfer.
That's life. That's what happens. And I have no regrets. I don't look back in anger at that. I really don't. I mean, they're just circumstances. Thank God I won one. Many players have played this game and been great players and can't look back on where they've won a single major. So I have absolutely no regrets. And it's all well and good to say, well, what if, and maybe if, you do what you do.
Win or lose, the magic of the majors continues to grow. But with the broadening base of world-class golf, some question the lack of balance in the fields of those majors played in America.
The hope that European and the rest of the world players can gain more access to the 3 United States majors as we see them. We must try to show to our friends in the United States that the European Tour is going forward, is producing players who are very competitive, who will continue to be competitive, and that with particularly the major championships being the 4 times a year, the main focal point of golf, I think that the public in all the countries want to be assured that substantially the best players are there and are playing. And we frankly feel that stretches to more than 5 or 6 of our tour. For a Japanese player, he has to travel to all 4 major championships. I mean, people have lamented that perhaps an Aoki or a Nakajima have not as yet carried off a major title for the JPGA. But we should not forget that I think Aoki today has the 2nd lowest aggregate in the history of the United States Open. He was unfortunate that he shot it the year Jack broke the record.
We want Japanese first-class players and many more players to play on our Japanese tour. It creates a problem for the sponsors who hold a tournament in Japan when those Japanese players play abroad. It does not mean that we do not want them to play abroad, but still, there is a problem. They don't wait until they feel they can win, but they know they will get stronger when they play abroad. From now on, the young players open the way to play abroad. Well, Aoki is doing this. I'm sure one by one, the number will be increased in the future.
There is no question that players of that level and Jumbo Ozaki and others are as competitive as anybody. But of course they do have to travel out to the United States and to Europe if they're going to compete in the major championships. And I think they're very sophisticated in their own media, very, very successful. And I think, yes, we do need to see more of them internationally.
I should think where there should be a 5th major, if there's going to be such a thing, would be outside the United States. I don't know how to quite make that happen, but I think the reality is that as the game spreads in importance internationally and as more and more good players come from all over the world, particularly in Australasia. I think that's where somehow there ought to be a fifth major.
I wouldn't like to think that we're going to compete with the others, or that we're all going to compete with each other to try and establish a pecking order. That isn't right. There are 4 major championships, and I think there are likely to stay 4 major championships.
It's so much more difficult for one individual, because there are so many good players out there, to accumulate the number of individual victories, that it could be that it would be good for golf to have more majors rather than just a select few of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. That in fact, if there were 5 or 6 major championships to give an individual players more opportunity to excel at those important events, that it may very well be in the interest of golf that that happen.
You've got your 4 tournaments, and when people say this tournament should be a 5th major, or this tournament should be, you have your 4 majors and just leave it at that and forget about it, and let's just let time keep going by so we can look back in time and say, okay, this guy won this tournament, won the British Open, won the US Masters or the PGA Championship, and I think they're the best yardstick to have.
Why there will never be any more major championships other than those 4 is a very simple reason. That people that really helped make this game, going back to Harry Varden, going back to Walter Hagen, going back to Gene Sarazen, to Ben Hogan, to Sam Snead, all these wonderful golfers, they all had the opportunity of playing in the 4 major championships as they're known today, Bobby Jones included. Now, suddenly you see sponsors saying, well, this is a major championship. Well, they can make it an important championship, but I don't think a major, because none of those people ever had an opportunity to play. Now, isn't it just logic to have your major championships, the tournaments that all the great players throughout time have had an opportunity to play in? That's only fair.
I think it'll always be 4. I don't think that it'll ever be any other. I think it's something that is like the Kentucky Derby. I mean, they've got races that race for a lot more money than the Kentucky Derby, but there's only one Kentucky Derby, one Belmont, one Preakness. They can have all the Arlington Millions and the Santa Anita Handicaps and whatever you want, but there'll only be those 3. And it's the same thing with major championships in golf. I mean, there'll be other tournaments that they'll want to call them a major, and they'll want to do this and do that, but the media will not stand for it. And rightfully so. Those tournaments have been there long enough, and they've stood the time. And I mean, if you're going to make them all majors, then they don't mean anything. Yeah.
Before the last round, walking to the tee, a man said, would you mind signing this golf ball, Mr. Faulkner, for my son? He was about 12. And I said, good God, I'm 6 ahead. All right then. And I put Max Faulkner on it. He said, put 1951 Open Champion, will you? He said, because you're bound to win. And I said, here, wait a minute, Governor. So I said, yes, I'm bound. Open Champion 1951. I said, don't you get that wet, son. You keep that. Let it dry. Because it was a wet pen. I walked onto the tee and away I went. And it happened. Oh, that's a neck, isn't it? I have nightmares when I think about it now. Oh, dear, oh, dear.
I stared at the ball, and as I walked towards it, it fell in the hole. And I thought to myself, you got one shot to play with. You fire at every flag until you lose it, but you fire at every single flag. And I went 3-3-4, 3-3-4, 3-3-4 to shoot 30. And at the 17th hole, if I go birdie par, I shoot 63. I had a 12-footer, and I knocked it about that far from the hole, not more than 1.5 feet. And I got over the ball, and everything went glassy. I mean, I was having a heat prostration. And I shook it, and I missed the putt, and I made bogey, and I missed it from about 3 feet at 18. I went bogey, bogey to shoot 66. And I do not remember it, but Jay Aber told me he rode up in the station wagon with me from the bottom of the hill. Until this day, I couldn't tell you that it was him, and he said I had laid my head back, and they called a doctor, Dr. Everett, and I don't remember any of these things. I'm telling you things only that I've been told. I do not remember anything about it. Dr. Everett told me this. I don't remember hearing him. He said, I suggest that you don't go out there this afternoon because it could be fatal. It could cost your life. And he said, you may die. And he said, I turned to him and he quoted me back and I said, well, it's better than the way I've been living. And I went out to the afternoon round, and God is my witness, I do not remember how I got to the first tee. I do not remember driving off. When I got into the press conference, I could not remember a single hole. I signed my scorecard only because Joe Dye, I looked at my card and I could not put the pencil on the card. And a voice behind me with his hand on my shoulder said, "Sign it, Ken, it's correct." I looked up and it was Joe Dye, and that's the only reason I signed it. And we keep each other's cards. And the one that happened the most is when he walked off the green, Ray Floyd picked the ball out of the hole. And I looked at the 21-year-old boy crying, and I broke down myself. And I handed him his card, and it did not have a number on it. To this day, from that day to this day, I do not remember one single shot that Ray Floyd hit. If you gave me $1 million, I couldn't tell you one thing he did. The only thing I remember Ray Floyd did was pick my ball out of the hole at the 18th hole.